Okay, hello, it's Anya Devine here. Bit of a rigmarole setting this up, but I wanted to do a video seeing as I've not seen you for so long. Sitting in the car outside the storehouse, about to go in and write the rest of my newsletter. And I thought, look, I remember, because I've just shared the sketch I did here about a month ago, and I remembered as I watched it the simple joy of just tuning in and slowing down and drawing something. And actually part of it for me too is tuning in, slowing down, drawing something, and having meandering thoughts that I can share and feeling like somebody out there is maybe sitting with me here listening. And to you, I say thank you very much, because you keep my show on the road. You do more than you know. And those of you who make comments underneath the videos, it's such a lovely interaction to receive those comments, and I just want to thank you particularly for that generosity to share. Yeah, and every one of you, you know, if it's your first time watching, you're all very, very welcome here. And yeah, welcome to sit in the car with me here now and just see what happens as I look in the mirror above the above the steering wheel, and try and see the shadows as I'm chatting that make up my eyes here, that make up this eye at least. I don't know if I'll get onto the other one. And the iPad is sitting on my knee recording this. It's at a bit of a jaunty angle, and you might be feeling my breath in my belly as I push the iPad out every time I breathe. I don't know. Maybe I'm not breathing deeply enough if you're not feeling it swaying. Now I'm going to change the colour. I've got this orange pen as well, and I quite fancy doing I feel like introducing colour. Yeah, I feel like introducing colour. I was listening to somebody on YouTube yesterday talking about feeling a bit of melancholy and realising they didn't need to hear their songs that they normally love that are quite kind of mellow. And another thing that she said was that she also recognised that black wasn't the colour to wear that day. So the jumper I'm wearing is the same colour as this pen. And I'm actually going to go for pink next, because I think I've got quite a pinkish rim, especially to this lower lid here. I started drawing this and stopped because I wasn't catching it on the camera properly. So I've just shuffled things about a bit now. And I'm hoping that you're able to hear me clearly, more clearly than earlier as well. Because I had the camera upside down and the volume bit was facing my legs, so I think I would have been more mumble than word. No. So here we go for the shadow beneath the eye, which has felt more of a groove recently than I can even recognise when I look in the mirror. Do you know that those days when you just feel like your eyes are sunken more deeply into your head? I don't know if you get that. And I'm surprised sometimes when I look in the mirror and I feel like, oh, they're not as hollowed out as I anticipated they would be. But there is certainly a shadow there. And now in my soon to be 52nd year, I think I've earned a few shadows. Yeah. This reminds me a little bit too of I think I was listening to Coleman Barks' Rumi. I don't know if I think to put it in the description, I'll add the link below. Coleman Barks translated Rumi writing. And what was I going to say about him? Oh, he spoke about when it first came to him that he was to be given this job, but it came to him in a dream. There was some kind of lucid dream that he had, and in the dream, I don't remember all the details, but in the dream he spoke of dewdrops of love, like coloured orbs everywhere, like through and in and of everything. And it made me cry when he said it, because it had such feeling. There's an interview in Sounds True with him, actually, that where he speaks about this too. The Sounds True podcast, I suppose it is. When he said these coloured orbs of light, the dewdrops, actually what they were tiny dewdrops, and he realised that all that every single one of them was love. That's it. That it was simply love hanging there in the air, and in and along, and on every single edge, and the space between things, and lingering over and through and in all and of everything, like every single atom and cell. And it was just such a beautiful image. It stayed with me, that image. The idea of all these coloured dewdrops. And I guess since then I've had a kind of almost like a hankering of somehow making that feeling happen in my work. I don't know. That's maybe sounds like an ambitious claim, and I certainly haven't realised it. I've been left frustrated. It's like I'm not hitting the mark, not finding, there isn't, just not quite getting it. And not getting it, it's like painting your lover or something, or somebody that you really, really love, or your baby, and not getting it, and knowing that you're not really getting it. And that's more tragic than anything, isn't it? It would be different if it was a stranger, but when it's somebody whose face, whose countenance you've adored, and then you can't manage. So I feel a bit like that about that particular bit of writing, because it was just such a sublime image, and generated this depth of feeling in me that I thought that must be a download that'll emerge again later on. It's affected me so much. And I suppose what our responsibility is as people who work in the creative industry, or as artists, I suppose that let's have a look at that. I suppose that our job really is to download, and then best we can manifest through the vessels that we are something to represent the beauty we have experienced, however it came to us. And very often I think it's best without a plan. So maybe that's where I was getting stuck, was that I had too much of an outcome in mind. The way that creativity, it just doesn't show up in that rigid. Real creative impulse to me feels like it wants freshness, it wants open space where there's nothing in the way. It's terrifying, and exhilarating in equal measure, I would say, that place. Maybe that's why one of the things that it's my passion really is to paint and draw, to paint, and demonstrate, because it's one of the. It seems to me at this stage anyway. I don't know if later on I'd be able to manage it to elsewhere, but it seems to me that it most potently comes alive, that freshness and that open space, when I pull out all the stops and I have to make something happen in front of folk. And there needs to be a willingness then, because it doesn't, by its nature, there is no guaranteed outcome. So I need to fully abandon the whole project to the stars, and just hope for the best, or I suppose accept and allow whatever happens to happen. And maybe this is partly why I do like watching like these drawings, and I know that whatever it is that I do, it's unfolding as I'm chatting with she, and the self-consciousness goes out of it. Maybe then there's something about that I feel more free. I guess I feel free. Do you know what it is that I feel free from? Is my own mind. That's what I feel free from, because my conversation with you is occupying my mind nicely. Or maybe it's just turning it off, letting it not be busy, because I've already got my attention elsewhere. And sometimes, although I say that it's lovely to be in the moment with drawing and to feel the full presence of attention on the subject being drawn, although I say that, there are times when it's not so easy to find that place. Just spontaneously sitting down, and sometimes, well, I just find recently particularly that there's more of a need to give my mind something to play with in order that I can be clear. It's like I feel like throwing a ball, for a dog or something. Look over there. So that I can just get on with cleanly seeing and drawing down what I'm seeing. So I was thinking there's a blue missing, but I do have a biro that's blue. So let's see how this goes. One day I was sitting in the cafe and came out and I had a parking ticket. It was my first time realising that you only actually have 40 minutes here. So this isn't going to be one of those epically long videos. And I think after it, before I go into the storehouse, I'll take myself to another parking space, so that if the traffic warden did spot me earlier, I won't get my ticket this time, and I can linger in the cafe and finish off my newsletter and a few other little things. When I say finish off, that's a bit like, there's a slight fear in me, because there's a desired outcome, isn't there? And the newsletter to me too feels a little bit like a creative venture, kind of a trip into unknown territory every 2 weeks or so. And my friend Linda puts it together for me, and I suppose that there is where there needs to be some form of structure. And it's good for me, because since Linda's taken it over, I have been doing a newsletter every 2 weeks, mostly without fail. And I know that I need to give it to her within the parameters of a few days, in order that she can do something with it. And so it's like that thing of having a restriction in your drawing, like sitting here still with the, having to remain a bit still with the camera in front of me. This is a bit of a restriction for me, and maybe it gives me that kind of resistance to push against that actually is almost needed. I feel like there's, it's a pleasure to have that push, to have that push back, the kind of, I don't know what the word is exactly. I think resistance is the best word, but resistance has a lot of negative connotations for me, and this doesn't feel negative. It feels like a restriction. And another restriction might be that the pens are limited. I've just stuck a few in my pocket as I was leaving the house this morning. And then the structure of the video too doesn't allow me to go on forever. So that's another parameter that I actually, part of my being is very happy to have this. I suppose it's like Rumi speaks about discipline and surrender. I know I keep bringing that up. I'm not sure if I ever say it properly in context, but there's something in the certain kind of orderliness that's created through restriction that allows the creative impulse to breathe with more in a space that's secure. I guess that's what it is. I'm learning something as I'm speaking here, because I have felt quite stuck recently, and there's a bit of an I think I'm touching on something that matters to me here, which is security, and to have the feeling of a steady, structured environment in which I can then, in a spacious environment. And I think there's something about having parameters and having boundaries and having certain rules and restrictions, not too many now, but a few rules and restrictions before we begin a creative pursuit, that maybe the very fact of them being there means that the exploration of freedom is has more meaning than the venture into unknown territory. Seems somehow to, or just that friction creates the necessary energy to in the end make to free yourself, actually. So the parameters and the structures and all the rest of that serve to, in the end, I want to say liberate the creative spirit. I don't know if that's just I think they're just words, but the parameters have something to do with the energy that's imbued in the piece, and the energy that drenches the space. And I think it would just be a deluge and a flood and dilute if there were no parameters. This is something, I suppose, that people often talk about when, performers as well. Like, I know a friend of mine is a professional violinist, and she spoke about going on stage and having prepared everything, but then giving it to the gods almost. Because after a certain point, there's no more preparation you can do. And whatever restrictions emerge in that space, you just need to tolerate them and let them be part of the process, and part of the creativity of the space of the particular live performance that would never arise in a recording from a studio, really, because it can be rehearsed and rejigged and all the rest of it. But maybe even there's restriction to it, I don't know. I suppose it's a different thing there, that you're summoning up the freedom there more than restriction or something like that. I got a bit lost there in my train of thought. I'm just hoping that you can still see what's going on here. Anyway, there's my eye. I think I might stop there. I have got a slightly rosier cheek than I've given myself, so I'll do that. I went to Gladhouse this morning and I had a little paddle, and maybe it feels like there's some sort of creative impulse that started to flower in me again, because I picked up a stone and then another stone, and before I knew it I was making a circle, and before I knew it I was making another circle around that circle, and then before I knew that I was making a circle around, and I made a star, kind of a four, there's the parking attendant. I made 4 different extensions out, north, south, east and west, I assume, or just, in a cross shape from the circles. And then I recognised that what I needed to do was actually to turn those. I heard the words batten the hatches, and I ended up turning those, the ends of those, the legs of the cross, into a final circle, like a fortress outside all of the others. And inside the very centre, I had a pine cone in there. And next thing, my eyes fell on this beautiful white feather. And so I put the feather in the centre, and to anchor it in there, I put the pine cone on top of it. And I thought to myself, no, this is for all of us. I blessed it with water from the reservoir as well. You'll think I'm strange, and sometimes I think I'm strange, to be honest. I don't know where these things come from, but I feel like, in the past and still now in religion, I suppose, there is ceremony and ritual and petitions made for things. And I felt that as I was making that circle on the ground by the water there, on my own, and the rain was coming down a little bit as well, I felt that as I was sitting there, that it came to me to offer up a bit of a petition, or a prayer. Really is what it felt like, to offer up a prayer. And the word conflict, to kind of and peace. And I put stones into the boundary between the outer circle and the inner circle then, and all the stones were, as I put each one in, I was naming them, like I felt like I wanted to the qualities of love, really, and just like discernment, right judgment, all of those things that we can as individuals benefit from. I certainly feel myself, I would love support in these areas to bring compassion to things that feel impossible, and conflict being so topical in the world at the moment, and all that aggression and violence, and just the impossibility of what to do about that, how, I feel a little bit tearful because it feels like there are personal implications too, and that's how I'm crying, I suppose, because I feel the impossibility of things myself in my own life, and I'm sure there's none of us without things that just have that quality of, I don't know what to do here. And so it was from that place that I made that circle this morning, circle of stones. And after the prayer was spoken, I ended up lifting that pine cone off the feather, and the feather stayed put, and I put some water, as I say, from the reservoir on it, kind of blessing and just, I suppose, to almost seal the prayer, and sending up a prayer for peace, and for light to be shed on all of this, all of us, and through all of us, and anyway, so I lifted the pine cone off that then after the prayer, and after the water had been put in it, and the feather stayed put. And I thought to myself, I'll come back now tomorrow, and whatever has happened, if it's still there or if it's flown free, I feel like it'll be just exactly what's supposed to happen there. Just exactly what's supposed to happen. And I had the thought again of Rumi. As I was sitting there was another Rumi thing that came to me. I remember at a time when I was flummoxed about what to do about things, and it came to me then too. It was the one about the field, out beyond right doing and wrong doing, there is a field. I will meet you there. Something, I don't know if I've got it exactly right, but you get the picture there. And then I was listening to Women's Hour when I came back, and there was an MP from the Ukraine who's got 3 young children. She's got one child who's under the age of 1, and her son and daughter were 8 and 6. And she was asked a lot of things, about the situation there. But what she said when she was asked, do you see an end to this? And she said, with such clarity, yes. For after every dark night, there is a new dawn. And I could feel through the radio the power in her, and the belief. And she is somebody who's campaigned against against having weapons. And she said she's having to reconsider that in this moment, having and using weapons. So there we have it. What a strange state of affairs the world is in, and I suspect, from what I feel inside me anyway, there's something of this agitation within my own soul about all these different kind of dynamics in my own life, and just, nothing out of the ordinary really, although there's parts of me that feel overwhelmed around some of it, just, I guess, the umbrellas of security and relationships and all of that stuff that we all grapple with it on some level. So, but I need to remember all the choice that really exists in my life, all the wonderful brightness, and like I was saying last night, I was writing the newsletter last night as well, and just the exultant yes to life. I think there's a piece at the end, Molly Bloom's monologue at the end of Ulysses. I listened to that, and she was kind of life affirming, love affirming, the yes to life and love. And then I was noticing the brightness of the daffodils dancing in the vase beside me, and I said yes to them, and it did seem to change. I was reading about it in Stephen Nachmanovich's book Free Play, where he speaks about a yes to life, and he said try it now. He said try and just look around you and say yes to whatever it is that's sitting there, and yes and yes and yes, and then he said to try saying no and feel the heaviness of the no. I didn't try the no, but I did say the yes. And I did feel that, life affirming quality, and just the gratitude of this life too, really. I think saying yes, there's a natural, eventually you fall into a deep pool of gratitude, like that, my God, we're here. And how fortunate and how miraculous that is. It reminds me too, this is the last thing now, because I'm just wittering on now and doing the same with my pen here, giving myself more veins than even I have broken in my face. It reminded me too of the piece in A Room with a View, where the father, Mr. Emerson, says to Lucy, just turning around there, where Mr. Emerson says to Lucy about his son George, who he seems to think suffers from melancholy, and he said he needs to show him or something the yes to life, and the kind of joyful. He said the yes and the yes and the yes, and it's just worth having a look at that clip alone in that film, because you just get the real sense from the belly up of the joy of living. And he was asking her to dispel the melancholy of his son by letting him know about the joy of living. So something like that. There we have it. I didn't anticipate having that conversation this morning. Look, here I am, I think. It's part of me anyway. And it's been a real pleasure sharing this with you this morning. Look at my lovely notebook. It's kind of matching the colours in my drawing, isn't it? Anyway, thanks very much. It's been really lovely having the chat with you. I've forgotten how pleasing I think it is, and maybe I'll do it again more often. So I'm off now for my cup of tea and maybe a scone or something in the storehouse, and I'll connect on the newsletter with you again, those of you who listen, who read that. And maybe you're going to go and put your feet up or head out into the garden or do any number of things and just let your spirit soar for a little while and see if you can find an exultant yes in your life. Okay, all the very best, everybody. See ya.